Hey guys, Rich here. Welcome to Composed with Richard Schreiber. I would like to explain something. Now, I still see this posted on trailer music forums and my channels, etc., etc. People ask me the question of why is trailer music structured the way trailer music is structured? And it comes back to something really, really basic. I mean, I can answer that very, very quickly, but I would like to explain it to allow a deeper understanding. Trailer music is structured in the same way that a film is structured, and that is the three-act structure. Now, there will be some people who argue that there is a fourth act in trailer music, and they can argue all they want. I'm sticking with the three-act structure here. And that three-act can be explained in two ways. Two ways. Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3, obviously. And then the most obvious one, which we learn about, which is the beginning, the middle, and the end. When we talk about our acts, we need to establish what they're doing and why. And this is why it's really important to understand the structure so that you can implement it in your tracks. Because a lot of people miss the whole notion of the three acts in their cue, or at least miss the purpose of each individual act and what role it has. So let's explain a little deeper. So Act 1 is the beginning. Now, if you think about most films start in the beginning, right? And what I mean by that is this, that they start with your character in their normal life. That is life before the story has really begun. You'll see them, working a dead-end job they don't like. You'll meet the other important characters in their life. You'll see where they live, what they do, and you'll get a feel for who they are as a person. That is Act 1. In our music, we need to set the tone for the trailer, set the tone for the movie, and that's what Act 1 is for. Act 1 is for setting the tone of what is their life like before the problem happened, before the story sparked into action. What was their status quo? So that's why sometimes with Act 1 in trailers, you'll get music that's completely different to the rest of it, because it's like, this is their life before this happened, This is Amy before she met Steve, and then Steve comes in. Or, this is Billy before the alien came and abducted his mother, that type of thing. It's their life. Act 1. So you need to think about that. If you're writing a whole cue, how is Act 1 establishing that this is their life unchanged? And the other thing that you can do in Act 1 is start to hint to what's coming. And that could be just a simple riser, hinting that the tension is about to be hitting. Or it could be just a small build in Act 1. That's all. Very, very simple, but you hint. Act 2, right? Act 2 is where the meat of the story comes in place. Act 2 is the middle. Act 2 is where your character is thrown into this new situation where they either meet the love of their life, or the world gets the destruction of the world becomes possible, or the problems start really in Act 2. And that's why Act 2 is all about drive and build, because you're building up the story, you're building up the pace, you're building up the actual element of the story that is the reason the story exists. So in a love story, you'll meet the love interest, or their relationship will go to a new level in Act 2. In like a horror film, Act 2 is just after they've moved into this lovely new Victorian house. Act 2 is, but there's something else in this Victorian house. Act 2 is like, oh, there's something afoot. There is an issue. It's usually a problem. And Act 2 is the problem being dealt with, or at least being faced. Because it's kind of like storytelling is a reflection of life. Our life is a series of obstacles that we need to learn from to progress forward. And that's what we're doing into Act 2. We are seeing the obstacle And then we build and we build and we build and we build and we build, boom, into Act 3, where Act 3 is the climax, where something, you could say that it's kind of like an extension of Act 2, because usually what happens at the end of Act 2, something goes wrong. And then Act 3 is the recovery. Act 3 is defeating the alien monster. Act 3 is learning the lesson, like Groundhog Day, when he realizes that the thing he needs to do is actually just to live and enjoy and serve others, and not be so selfish. That's his Act 3. He changes. The change happens. In trailer music, we reflect Act 3 with a greater scale. It's like you reflect their broadening of their mind with the broadening of scale. Or broadening of impact. And that's why normally what happens is Act 1 is quiet, Act 2 is louder, and Act 3 is, all ears bursting. Act 3 is the climax of the story, where the character faces the issue head on and wins. Or at least, and some trailers leave it to the point where we don't know if they've won. So that's why sometimes you'll get trailer music that builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and stops, which is one of my favourite things to do. Because then it's the question mark. You'll have to see the film to find out if they win. Of course they win, because that would suck. We don't want to see a film where all our favourite characters just lose and die. Anyway, that is Act 3. So that's what you have to think about when you're writing your Act 3 is the strength of the character defeating the problem. So you're getting these things clashing together, and that's why you get these big bangs, big clashes, huge orchestras, because it's like a macrocosm of the microcosm of the internal struggle, the character's development. And people often suggest that there is a fourth act to trailers. I would just call that the resolution of Act 3, which is, where you go, that type of thing. If you're going to be doing classic hybrid orchestral, it's essentially the symbolic ending, where you just hammer home the tonic. You just go boom, 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 boom. You hammer home the root note of the cue, and there we go. There you have it. That is the 3-act structure and why we have those 3 acts. So next time you sit down to write your cue, think about it. This is the world before the problem. Act 1. Act 2. This is the problem and them facing it. Act 3 is them facing it head on and winning. How can you show that in your music? It's just fascinating, and I love trailer music because the structure is so formulaic. You don't need to worry about it. You don't have to think, oh, should I do AABA ABC, or should I do AB AB ABC, or should I do ABC ABC CC ABE CD, whatever song form brackets, which is great because that's great. It allows you to be creative. But I love trailer music because of the rigidity of the structure. Now, there are rules that can be broken, i.e. Like a slow burn epic. One could argue that it's the 3 acts become one into one huge build, which I'm a big fan of. One long building cue. Boom. They are so dramatic, so effective, and so fun to write. So what I want you to do is sit down and think about those 3 acts. And how is your music reflecting the elements of the story? It's super fun.